Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 111. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad to be back with you guys for this Friday. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. A happy Friday it is. We made it through the draft and got some clear sailing up ahead here. I'm assuming the rookie minicamp will go on with most everybody there here this next weekend and all. So it's a great time to be alive right now.
And Dave, I'm glad you mentioned rookie minicamp. We now have official off-season program dates for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The rookie minicamp will be held next weekend, as is the case with most teams, May 14th through the 16th. OTA off-season workouts will take place May 25th through the 27th, June 2nd through the 4th, and June 14th through the 17th, with a mandatory minicamp the 8th through the 10th of June. So that is the off-season schedule officially set in stone, kicking off with rookie minicamp about a week from now. And
now we'll sit and wait and see who goes and who doesn't go. Once again, I think as we talked about, I can't for the life of me think if you're a rookie, especially drafted outside of the first, 4 rounds, thinking to yourself that it's a good idea to skip a rookie mini camp here. So it's just a weird. And while we're on the soapbox here, what about that weird flex that the NFL did the other day? On the heels of the what's his last name, James?
Jawan James.
Jawan James suffering, what was it, an Achilles injury and all? And I'll side with the NFL on a lot of this stuff that they do, but for them to kind of take that and put that in a kind of a news release and point, it's almost like they was pointing at a dead body. Don't do that. I found that very, very distasteful on the NFL's part. I think the NFLPA in so many words has come out and said that as well too. Something along those lines there. So going to be, look, the NFLPA, as I've said several times, they do a horrible job at negotiating the CBA. You agree to a CBA, and then now after the fact, you're trying to get minor things agreed to, on the heels of COVID and all like that. Good luck with that. I mean, that's why that's why you have the negotiations of the CBA and all to work that kind of stuff out. It's almost, for them to try to do this after the fact now looks bad on them. I understand why they're doing it, but this is just going to be weird. Look, voluntary is voluntary. If you don't want to go, don't go. But on the flip side, don't get mad at the repercussions teams might take against players that don't go to voluntary. And obviously they can't fire them and all like that. But might hurt your spot trying to get a roster spot there. So what a way to get me fired up on the morning here.
You're right. It felt like a weird victory lap the NFL was taking after the James injury, but let's be honest, that is an effective message that just got sent out to every player that now fully realizes the ramifications of what happens if they get hurt while working away from a team facility. It's actually a subject of my terrible take today. You guys are going to hear later in the day of my terrible take for Steelers Depot. So we'll see how many players skip, but I think it's going to be a lot less than what the unit and the players were hoping for, because I think a lot of these guys, veterans and, of course, rookies are going to show up.
Right.
All right, Dave, so that is your off-season schedule.
Who's going to play quarterback, though? We don't know. Unless they let some of these other guys go, which I haven't seen anything on that.
Right. Well, we'll see what the roster size is in general. I mean, how many guys are going to even be at rookie minicamp? And then for the regular OTAs, I'm sure somebody, Dwayne Haskins, I think probably will end up being at OTAs because he needs all the work he can get right now.
Right.
Speaking of quarterbacks, Dave, we have some new information on the contract extension for Mason Rudolph. I think we finally got details on that the other day, which you, as you always do, posted to Steelers Depots, and you kind of run through what those numbers look like and analysis of the extension.
Yeah, color me shocked. here, Alex. When you look at the details here, I was surprised that they were able to get something done with Rudolph. Period. I found that a big surprise. Secondly, you look at the details on this. He only took a, where's my signing bonus number at here? It's been a few days since $2.08 million signing bonus as part of this 1-year extension. For starters, that's low, man. And look, I understand he is what he is, but you got a chance of potential here of who knows how much time you're going to get playing time in 2021. This might just be one of those sure money grabs for him, thinking that, boy, I'll definitely get a shot at 2022. As far as potentially being a starter, but $2.08 million signing bonus. He took his base salary down just a little bit, down to the minimum there as part of that. And obviously in 2022, he's now set to make $3 million base salary, but I'm not seeing anywhere where that's fully guaranteed either. So now he does have other incentives out there, that are right now viewed as unlikely to be earned, and their playtime incentives. We do not know what those are based on, what the criteria is on them, but we do know that he can earn, an extra, I forget what the exact $4 million in additional incentives that are based on playtime, and that doesn't say whether it's this year or next year or what. So I'm still trying to effort that. None of those numbers will impact his cap numbers unless he has playtime incentives this year that are not likely to be earned that he actually hits. Then obviously the Steelers would be charged for that in 2022 against their cap that way there. But man, oh man, to me it sounds like he signed himself away fairly cheap. In total here, he got almost $5 million in new money, but once again, $3 million of that looks to be unguaranteed money in 2022. $2.8 million, or what I say, $2.08 million in a signing bonus. I'd have to see the further details of these playtime incentives and all like that. But to me, I think he gave away that extra year kind of cheap.
Yeah, that's the question I'm asking myself with Rudolph extension. For Rudolph's side of things, the question is why? Why are you doing this? Even if we assume that he barely plays in 2021 as the backup and Ben stays healthy, and it's kind of similar to this past season, how much worse was his market going to be a year from now compared to present day? Probably not much based on the money that he got. Unless it's an idea of, well, hey, I'm the only quarterback under contract, so maybe that's the incentive the team will have to view me as the future because I'll be here under contract. Ben, may retire and, Dobbs can be gone and something like that. So unless there's some sort of just psychological impact he's trying to make here by saying, like, maybe this tells the team that I am going to be their guy. I'm not sure what the reason was for him to do this at such a low level right now.
Yeah, I mean, once again, we'll see what the playtime incentives and all like that, and maybe he feels that he'll definitely be able to hit those in 2022, kind of a bet on yourself, if you will, type thing. But I think you hit on the main thing there. Was his market value for? Did he need the $2.08 million in his pocket that bad right now? And technically, he gave up a little bit of the original base salary. I mean, not much. I mean, around $500,000 or so, lowered his 2021 base salary down as part of this. So let's just go ahead and call it $2 million, extra that he's putting in his pocket this year. I mean, did he need the $2 million that bad to sign away the extra year where you're basically saying that, I'm not so sure that I could have increased my value more than $3 million base salary. Now, once again, I mean, those playtime incentives, are kind of tricky. We don't know exactly what they are, but just at first blush here when looking at this thing, I would have never imagined he would have sold that extra year off for that.
Yeah, maybe it's to pay for those expensive dates with all the Bachelorette stars he's on. I don't know. But yeah, it was good. It's good for the Steelers, though. I mean, even though I'm not certainly a big Mason Rudolph fan, I don't think he's the future. To replace Ben to be the franchise quarterback for this team, to get a quarterback under contract for that level of money, even for backup status, to me is dirt cheap. So it's good for Pittsburgh.
I don't know. It's a tennis player or something he dates, isn't it?
It's been like 4 different people. There was the Hannah girl from The Bachelorette, and I think tennis star. Yeah, so maybe there's some expensive dates he's trying to keep up with. I don't know.
I don't know. Them girls might make more than he does.
Probably, yeah. Would not be surprised.
All right, but that's that. Used up very, very little salary cap space.
Official number on how much?
Wound up using an additional 945. 9.452 almost in additional cap space, so a little less than $1 million. Now, look, I didn't think they'd want to even dump any additional cap space, that way. But I guess in order to get him to as part of him selling away that extra year on the cheap, they said go ahead and why not, So
because that $1 million matters, as you point out in your salary cap recap. I mean, they are as tight against the cap as tight can be.
They really are. When you look at it overall, a big picture, just at first glance, you see that they're almost $10 million under the cap still right now. But as I pointed out several times, that money's already spoken for, man. In fact, as they sit here right now in real time, and this is before, none of the, even though they have agreed to terms with the 8 undrafted free agents right now, none of those contracts have been passed along to the NFLPA yet. So none of those have hit. In fact, the official signings of those 8 undrafted free agents have yet to even be entered into the NFL transaction system yet. So we're still probably a good week away from knowing the exact numbers of the signing bonuses. Now, obviously, it's not going to be a lot, impacting the cap here. But in essence, right now, the team real time sits $9.4 million, roughly a little bit more than $9.4 million under the cap. But when you look at the projected future salary cap expenses, the signing of the draft picks, the signing of the undrafted free agents, 52nd, 53rd player, everything that goes along with that, they're really more along the lines right now in real time of being $3.5 million over the cap. All right. So then you look, okay, we've talked forever and a day about the restructures of a Tuitt and Boswell later on. Undoubtedly that will happen. That'll clear a little over $5 million. So really, if you want to be realistic about where the Pittsburgh Steelers sit salary cap wise right this minute, it's a little under $1.5 million under the cap at 1.46, almost 1.462. Now, obviously, there's a lot of estimation in there, but I'm going to be close on this. So, at most, they probably have $2 million in what we call effective, usable salary cap space as we sit here today. Now, there are other ways, obviously, of opening up cap space. TJ Watt extension, even though, that might not clear much. It might clear a tiny bit. We'll have to see what's going to happen with David DeCastro. I'm not totally convinced that they're going to extend DeCastro this summer, but it is possible that they do that. And then there's a whole break glass in case of emergency, do something with Joe Hayden with some voidable years and clear something that way if you could get him to agree to it. Outside of that and outside of cutting people, that's it.
Yeah, so it is pretty tight. I think Kevin Colbert admitted as much in an interview the other day, talking about the cap situation. So, that $1 million isn't a lot, and overall they can manage the cap increase with the Rudolph extension, but $1 million still means a lot to the Steelers in their present situation.
Here's the thing, at least they were able to accomplish, and kudos to them to getting it done right before the draft too, was the fact that they at least have one quarterback under contract for 2022. So
Old star.
You
got a quarterback under contract.
Right.
Good job. All right, speaking of Kevin Colbert, actually, Dave, I'll leave this up to you. Do you want to talk about the elephant in the room, the Alejandro Villanueva story, or Kevin Colbert's many comments in the last couple of days?
Yeah, let's fire some people up and talk about Villanueva here.
Are you going to be one of those people fired up, Dave? Because Villanueva, he had his first media interview since becoming a Baltimore Raven, and certainly on the surface, without hearing the comments yourself and just seeing some of the tweets, it certainly felt like some jabs, some shots at the Steelers. I think maybe there was a kernel of truth in some of the stuff he said. The old saying is all good jokes have a nugget of truth to them, but probably overhyped by the media cycle. That just that's how the media cycle is. But the comments about his motivation for choosing Baltimore was in part going to Baltimore, but in part getting to play the Steelers twice a season. So that was one initial comment. And talked about passes at receivers making TikTok videos and a little jab at David DeCastro, his buddy, about Kevin Zeitler's going to be an upgrade. Again, I think some of that stuff is certainly tongue in cheek, but some of that maybe reveals a little bit of the potential unhappiness about some of the things that happened in Pittsburgh.
This guy is such a cerebral guy. If you don't think a lot of this was contrived and wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and let's see how far I can. Isn't his favorite movie Network? Network News or something like that.
I have no idea. His favorite movie.
What is that old 70s movie that?
You are asking the wrong person.
Network, I think, was the movie, and I think Villanueva has referenced that before. Network, yeah, talking about. No, it's not Network. It's it is Network. Faye Dunaway, William Holden. That's a great movie. If you ever get a chance to go back and watch that one. It's been years since I've seen it. My wife could probably recite it for you because every time it comes on, she never misses it there. But anyway, it talks about it's kind of centered around about how the news is sensationalized and all like that, and. I think Villanueva has referenced that movie before in the past and all. If you don't think he kind of, I wouldn't be surprised if he told Juju, David DeCastro, and Ben Roethlisberger, watch this, hold my beer, Didn't he teach Juju how to drive?
He did. That was a big story when Juju first got drafted because he didn't know how to drive.
Didn't him and DeCastro ride to work every day?
I'm not sure about
that. Or pretty close.
They were friends.
They commuted quite a bit. And look, he knows the magnitude of Ravens versus Steelers, and it's not like Alejandro Villanueva is going to be granting very many media interviews to the Ravens media because that's not the way he is. So why not have a chance to kind of play hype man and not be all pro Steelers. I mean, you better bleed a little bit of purple during your initial meeting with the media there. You would think there. So I think a lot of this was contrived once again. And I think the Zach Banner and Ramon Foster have even come out and said, look, this is this guy getting in your head playing games with you, and basically no way, shape, or form is he taking jabs at his former teammates. Now, is there, like you said, is there a little bit of kernel to truth in some things that that he said? What was DeCastro happy about as pass happy as this offense was the last couple of years? Probably not.
That's the stuff he refers to hey, we're not going to throw 800 times. I think that's the feeling of, the Steelers were too pass happy for my liking, which every offensive lineman, the old saying is they love to run block over pass blocking.
Right. Yeah. I mean, was that a shock? Did you grab for your pearls, Alex, when he said that? I kind of doubt it there. Steeler fans love to feel disrespected. They love to feel, that media guy is taking a shot at us. That former player is taking a shot at us. They love to feel hated, And look, go ahead and hate the guy for whatever. Be mad at, don't root for him for playing for the Ravens or whatever. But I mean, if you're trying to find something in here with what Al Villanueva said, and if you listen to the full interview, and you can get it either on the Ravens website or on YouTube, and add yourself some context to it. He really praised the Steelers organization, and why wouldn't he? He said they let him know right out of shoot during the offseason that he more than likely wasn't going to be back there, and really appreciated that. And it's just, if you don't have the full context of this and you only get one quote here and there on the Twitter machine on it, it's going to get blown all out of proportion. And I'm going to, I'll take the opportunity to pat myself on the back, because I called this right out of the chute here. It's not as bad as what, the media's trying, not even close to as bad as what the media is trying to make it out to be.
For Villanueva, I believe it's called turning heel. That's what Villanueva did in that interview. And yeah, I had the joke, and I know you've mentioned as well. Villanueva's a guy that is so much anti-social media, so he knows he can make those jokes and then shut off the camera and have his flip phone and just let the Twitterverse go crazy. He never has to see any of it. There's no one going to be chirping at him in his mentions, because he doesn't have mentions. He doesn't have Twitter, doesn't have Facebook, any of that social media stuff. Although I will say, Villanueva has blasted the media before for being too sensationalized and things like that. And I think he's right about that stuff, but then he comes out there and stirs the pot like that. So he's feeding into the machine a little bit. So I think it's a little hypocritical based on previous comments. But yeah, overall, I think a lot of it was tongue in cheek. A couple of things, certainly, maybe some nuggets of truth in there. But I'm sure Villanueva was appreciative of his time in Pittsburgh. If it wasn't for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he probably would have fallen out of the NFL entirely. And so they made him, in part into the NFL player that he is today. So I'm sure he still has a lot of respect for that.
I view it just more of him mocking it, not that not so much being hypocritical. I mean,
he knows that the media is going to run with this stuff.
Sure, and that's why I said right, and I think it's almost like, hey, watch this. Probably told his old buddies back in Pittsburgh, watch how I handle this and watch how it blows up here.
But he said in the past, he hated how the media took some of his stuff out of context with the anthem things and stuff like that. And
right, I think he's trying to prove the point, though.
By feeding the machine, by giving the media the fodder that it looks for, or while blasting the media at the same time and saying, look at the media running with this. I don't know. I think you're just kind of fanning the flames when you make those comments. It just seems a little, to me, hypocritical.
I think it's a brilliant kind of throw the match. I mean, it's kind of the action hero kind of thing with, You get your final say by walking away, and the gas from the car's leaking and all like that, and you're about 100 feet away from it. And you light the cigarette and you toss it up back over your shoulder. It's to me it's brilliant.
Funny. It's funny.
And like you said, it's kind of the heel turn. He knows exactly what it is. I mean, it does.
That's my point. Yeah.
I mean, it does look like the great Hulk Hogan goes over to the NWO kind of. And I think he loves that part of it. And I think he's purposefully kind of doing that. So look, we'll see how it plays out. I think the most when you look back at this thing overall, comments aside and all like that, I think the Ravens season, quite honestly, once we look back at 2021, the main off-season decision that they made, I think, looking back at it, will be the trading away of Orlando Brown for essentially Al Villanueva, Ben Cleveland, and Jason Owa, right? Technically? Sort of?
Yeah, is that how the math of the trades worked? I didn't work out the compensation and what they did with those picks they got from Kansas City.
Right, because the first they spent on Owa, I think it was the third or whatnot, the guard Cleveland, Ben Cleveland, and then obviously Villanueva being part of that, them signing him after trading away Orlando Brown, and now there's I think there's a future pick in there as well too. But I just think overall, I think the best way to boil this thing down is to look back at it on that way. And because, look, Villanueva having to switch sides is going to be a storyline in itself. Having him run block, which isn't a specialty of his, is going to be another thing. And when you look at the opportunity that the Ravens had to, and we're turning this into Ravens Depot, I know. Sorry about that, but I thought for sure they would have spent one of those early round draft picks on a tackle. And and they didn't, and they're not very deep at the tackle position right now. And Ronnie Stanley coming off that injury, I mean, you want to talk about the explosion blowing up in your own face? Maybe it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, to bring it back to Pittsburgh, assuming that Stanley's healthy early in this season, that'll push Villanueva to right tackle. So you'll get T.J. Watt versus Alejandro Villanueva. Hopefully, twice this season should be a good battle.
Yeah, look, I mean, and should be a couple of other interesting battles that Villanueva has on that side throughout the season based on the schedule that the Ravens play. So, anyway. Yeah,
Villanueva, smart
look,
guy.
I love Villanueva. You know, I'm a huge Villanueva fan.
Yeah, I love the guy.
And I think he got unrightly criticized a lot for his play. Look, I pointed out right from the get-go that not as good of a run blocker as he is a pass blocker. But I thought a lot of his games. Sure, did he have his kryptonite at times, especially one Carl Lawson? Absolutely. They all do. But I still think. Maybe not so much last year, but ahead of that, top 10 left tackle in the league. And, why he didn't get the market value that a lot of us thought maybe this offseason, A, the salary cap situation, and B, because of his age, and, probably C, because he's just not that good of a run blocker.
Yeah, and the deep tackle class, I think, also hurt him because there were so many just good offensive tackles to take this year. But yeah, Villanueva, the few Steeler fans that liked him, that number maybe down to you and I now. I don't know if many people like Villanueva after those comments.
Sure, and I'm fine by that, but don't dislike him just because he's wearing the other colors. I wouldn't dislike him because of anything that he said the other day. Truly, if you go back with an open mind, if you listen to that entire press conference that he gave a few days ago, I think you'll see what Alex and I are talking about here.
Dave, to bring it back to the Pittsburgh Steelers, speaking of T.J. Watt, Kevin Colbert has done a media tour the last several days with a bunch of different radio shows. Shout out to, 93.7 The Fan yesterday, asking him some really good questions about the Steelers' present and future. One of those questions was in regards to T.J. Watt and his long-term future with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Colbert said no surprise, but he did say that their intent and their goal is to get a long-term deal done before the season starts.
Yeah, and look, I get on these sports DJs all the time because they just, and the media as a whole in Pittsburgh, because they really, as a whole, they do an awful job. I don't know how else to phrase it. But Starkey and Cook really did do a good job, I thought, and you probably would agree, right? I mean, some great. Those are questions that a lot of questions they asked are questions I think you and I would have asked, along those lines there. So, props to them for. I like to give credit where credit is due, and I thought they asked some great questions. Look, the answer to the T.J. Watt question, not surprising, but. We've already heard Art Rooney II kind of speak on this, and in so many words, Colbert said the same thing. Look, Art's already spoken on this. This is our intention. It does take two to tango, but and I know there was a little report or whatever, rumor or whatnot circling, I think, the Twitter machine yesterday or day before about the Steelers were close to with Watt to getting something done. It's not going to get done anytime soon. A source has told me within the organization that it's not going to get done anytime soon. So, there's that. And B, it doesn't match what the Steelers normally do in these situations anyway, which is wait until closer to the start of the regular season there. They don't need the surplus of cap money right now anyway. It's going to be a huge negotiation once the negotiation gets underway with Watt. On top of it, I mean, you're talking about negotiating a contract that should wind up with T.J. Watt being the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. You just don't slap that together, real quick here. But as we've kind of said all along, We expect TJ Watt to get done this offseason. It's just a matter of when, and I would expect it to be sometime after the team reports to training camp and before the start of the 2021 regular season.
I do as well, and it's a question of when and exactly how much. The highest paid defensive player right now is Joey Bosa at $27 million per year. TJ Watt will surpass that. The question is how close to 30, or will he touch 30? I'm guessing he'll be in that 29 to 30 range.
Should be that, and we'll see if I don't think anybody's got the opportunity of beating them to the punch to that. I think all those big deals are kind of, especially with star defensive players, are in other words, I think TJ Watt's next when it comes to the big defensive mega player deal here.
And while I'm sure everyone in the organization wants to see Watt done long term, it sounds like Art Rooney is at the forefront of that, because in Kevin's Colbert, in about 4 sentences he said the word Art 3 or 4 times.
Right.
Art says to get it done. Art says to get it done. And obviously, if Art wants it to happen, Mr. Rooney wants it to happen, it will happen. And so it should happen before the start of the season.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave, what else from Kevin Colbert did he talk about that kind of caught your attention? Kind of scrolling through the list here. How about the and this was a good political answer here from him on Terrell Edmonds with your option. And I know you kind of had a field day with this one, so I'll let you recap his answer on Terrell Edmonds.
Yeah. I was glad to hear him asked about it. I thought it was an excellent question there. I'm trying to find where my is that on the front page or no?
No. I can send you a link to it. It's on the second
page right now, I think, isn't it? Pretty soon we'll have it where everything will be on the front page, I think, here. Let's see. If
you would like the link to the article.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
But it was a very classic Colbert non-answer on it.
Yeah, he was asked it. He says, again, it was basically saying it was unusual to have Minkah Fitzpatrick and, basically two former first-rounders up for a fifth-year option in the same year. Yada, yada. And then he went on to say the cap situation in 2022 made it an issue there. Terrell had a great 2020 season. We hope he continues to prove on that. It's not out, and I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, not out of the question that we resign him at some point. Good job by Kevin Colbert to tap dance to not hurt anybody's feelings here. If Edmonds was worth the $6 million or almost $7 million on the fifth-year option, they would have picked up that option. Plain and simple. Mm-hmm. Plain and simple. That's what boil it down to that way. In a vacuum, that's what it is. Plain and simple. So, I think, he says, I think the decision came down to the team. No, this was me saying, I said, personally, I think Colbert blaming the team's decision to not exercise Edmonds' fifth-year option for 2022 because of salary cap reasons is a bit rich. In short, I think the decision came down to the team not thinking Edmonds is currently worth nearly $7 million for 2022. If they thought that he was worth that amount, they would have picked up his fifth-year option. It really is just that simple in my mind. So I'll give you the floor on that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, and Colbert's right. It is a unique situation to have both fifth-year options there with Fitzpatrick and Edmonds, and this has been a weird salary cap year. But I think the bottom line is what you said. If he was worth the money, he would have been, picked up. And just the framing of it was a little humorous to me. He said, quote, so we didn't feel good about not tendering him, but again, from a cap standpoint, we had to be realistic about what we would be able to do in a given year. So tough decision. Not a tough decision to exercise the option with Minkah, but not do it for just like right after that. Edmonds was tough. Minkah was a no-brainer. We love Minkah. It could go either way. Just funny the way that he framed that. But I understand the financial component to it, but you're right. If he was worth it, they would have picked it up. Financial reasons, would have been, put on the back burner had he been just worth it from a value standpoint in the Steelers' mind.
Look, I understand he's got to be delicate when talking about this, and I understand why he, the salary cap becomes a person here. Blame it on the salary cap,
Right.
It's just, if you pay attention to it like I do and like you do, you know what's going on here. And in so many words, Terrell Edmonds is not worth $7 million, and that's why we didn't pick up the fifth-year option.
Right.
But you can't come out and say that, So, and yeah, yada, leave the door open, might re-sign. Yeah. How surprised will you be if Terrell Edmonds is a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2022?
I mean, I don't think the door is closed, as we talked about on Tuesday's show, but the history of guys who don't get their fifth-year options picked up, even given the, changing circumstances, and now those options being guaranteed, but still the history says those odds don't look terribly strong.
If he is back, it's because he's saying, I need one more year to try to prove myself here, and I'm going to do it uber cheap, or obviously less than probably half of $7 million, Look, we see sometimes how these safeties get out there for, they think they're worth more than what they really are, and they get out there, stand in the middle of traffic, and they can't get the money that they want. Then they end up signing for $2 million, $3 million, along those lines. So if Edmonds does return for 2022, it's probably going to be for around half of the $7 million, or maybe even less.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, obviously, we'll see what happens this season. I think Colbert's right when he says that Edmonds is improving, and this past season was his best season. I 100% agree that it was, and I had this discussion with Bud Dupree, and that light finally came on with him. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Edmonds. It probably won't, but he'll continue to improve. He's still just 24, 25 years old, so still a guy that is supposed to be in the prime of his career right now, and so he can still get better, I think.
When if he does have a massive improvement, he'll just price himself right out of Steelers market, period. Then, and they're not going to use the tag on him. I mean,
no.
It wouldn't make sense to, unless he, like I said, he 9 interceptions. I mean, if this guy turns into Troy Polamalu, then let's talk. But that's going to need a huge magic wand for that to happen.
Yeah, so that was the comment there from Colbert on Terrell Edmonds. Also talked about the backup quarterback job and basically left it open-ended. Said Ben's a starter and everyone else will kind of battle it out for whatever jobs are available for the taking. So didn't really commit to any, Rudolph as a number 2 despite the extension. Just kind of said those guys will all fight it out.
Yeah, not surprisingly, but make no mistake about it. Mason Rudolph's the backup.
Yeah.
Mason Rudolph ain't fighting for anything right now, I don't think.
Yeah, based on the extension, and obviously Haskins has a whole lot to prove. So I guess it's more of a comment of Haskins versus Dobbs for that number 3, and potential maybe the loser goes to the practice squad. I think that's possible. But yeah, again, a lot of those things will get figured out in training camp. I'm
going to send you. I want to go back real quick and revisit Edmonds here real quick. I'm going to send you a link here real quick to the 2018 NFL draft, and. Okay. I want you to quickly look at the players drafted after Terrell Edmonds from there until the Steelers' second-round pick, and tell me which player you would have rather drafted other than Edmonds.
Well, Lamar Jackson was taken 4 picks behind Edmonds, so I'll put him probably at the top of the list. So Jackson, I would have taken Jackson. I would have taken Nick Chubb. I would have taken Darius Leonard. Maybe Cortland Sutton. I'm not 100% sure on where I come in on that. Maybe Gesicki. I would have taken Gesicki.
Jesse Bates down in there too, I guess, right?
Down there. Yeah, where was he picked at? Oh yeah, I haven't scrolled down that far yet. Would have taken Goddard. Let me look at a couple more names here. Connor Williams, maybe. I might have taken Edmonds over Connor Williams.
Where was there? Okay, yeah, James Washington was a second-round pick. You definitely would not have picked Darius Geis, Oliver. You were you were a Duke Dawson fan, weren't you?
Was I?
Yeah,
I would not have taken Dawson over Edmonds. So yeah, I mean, obviously the list would be the obvious names: Chubb, Leonard, Jackson. I think I would have taken maybe James Daniels, the center out of Iowa, was pretty good for Chicago. I mean, yeah, there's at least a half dozen guys I would have taken over Edmonds.
All right.
Looking back on it. Yeah, so, but at least they didn't take, was it Rashad Penny was the pick before Edmonds, so that wasn't, that was even a more egregious first-round decision for Seattle than it was for Pittsburgh.
All right, where to?
Kevin Colbert. What else did Kevin Colbert have to say over these last couple of days that stuck out to you?
I thought he did another masterful job about tap dancing around Ben and play action.
Oh yeah, that was 100% hard pivot away from that question.
Yeah, he was kind of asked, does Ben not like play action, and does Ben not like to turn his? They did a great job, I thought, of framing the question. Not like turning his back to the defense and all. And he starts off. He says, "Well, I'm sure he likes certain things and doesn't like certain things." Well, yeah, I don't like onions. All right, so I won't eat anything with onions in them. So yeah, I'm sure Ben has certain things that he doesn't like. He says on a given week he'll sit down with Coach Tomlin, blah blah blah, and doing what Ben was doing. We reached a point where we were 11-0, and it was going really.
That sounds like one of your stories.
Yeah. This is playing, and I referenced in here. I said that was. Here's a direct quote. He says, "And doing what Ben was doing, we reached a point where we were 11-0, and it was going really well. Obviously, it didn't finish well, and that's where the negative started. The pop." That's the engine blowing. The pop. We weren't running the ball. I mean, this is literally you could put this you could play this after a NASCAR wreck, and probably people wouldn't know the difference. Our defense wasn't playing at the same level. Ben wasn't playing to the same level. So schematics aside, we do know that he wants to be here and he wants to try to win a Super Bowl. Probably add in some Coca-Cola or Budweiser fluff on top of that, and you're there. I mean, and I put this in my post. It's like saying a NASCAR was running great. NASCAR car was running great until it blew an engine. Which is essentially what happened to the Steelers after their 11-0 start last year. Now he did try to recover after losing control of the car coming out of the turn there, but once again he never addressed it here. He just said that Ben has the ability to play under center. Well, Alex Kozora has the ability to play under center, I think. He didn't go much further than that. So he never really addressed the real question of, does Ben not like play action, and does Ben not like turning his back to the defense? I think we all know the answer to this question.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If Colbert was honest in answering it, he would have pissed off Ben, because we all know the answer is no. Ben doesn't like that stuff. I mean, that's obvious at this point. So Colbert tap danced it around the question because he knows the answer is not one favorable to Ben.
Right. Sometimes, look, I'm a huge Colbert fan. I think you are as well, too. And I think for the most part, and we understand why he gives some of the answers that he does give. But a lot of stuff, some of the answers that he does give, you're able to see right through them.
Right. Well, what's he supposed to?
Right, exactly.
Expect him to be honest.
Right, like we said with the Edmonds thing. I mean, right. What are you gonna say? Well, he's not worth $7 million, so that's why we didn't pick it up. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this. I'm just saying let's parse this out correctly here, and it's our job to do that, and that's what we're doing here. Here's the next step as part of this all. The next time Ben gets in front of the camera, you have to ask him. You might get thrown out of the ring, but you have to ask him the tough question here, and get the answer that I think we all know what we're looking for here. And yeah, I don't like play action. Yeah, I don't like playing. I don't like turning my back to the defense.
But I think he's been asked that before, and he just kind of brushes it off, just saying, yeah, we'll do it if we have to. We've done it before. If coach wants to do it, then we'll do it. I mean, he gives the very, non-answer to that question.
Well, I think you just keep after him,
Yeah, that's a good way to get kicked out of the Ben media circle.
Well, I mean, you got 1 year left, maybe.
And every reporter's angling for that Ben retirement story. They were all trying to be in his good graces so they can be the one to break the news. It's probably going to go to Bouchette. That's my guess.
Yeah, he doesn't like it. I mean, and as you have written since, the tail end of last season and early on in the off season, yeah, there's really only one way to have kind of the best of both worlds here. You got the running back now, and Najee Harris and all like that. You're probably going to see more pistol this year. I think that's the perfect solution and can keep everybody happy here. You can still have the running back in the eye in that situation instead of sidecar. Everything like that. So that's probably the best case scenario here. And it'll be interesting to track this kind of stuff once we get into the season. I think more motion is going to help this offense a lot more potentially here on top of it here. But anyway, I thought it was humorous, Kevin Colbert talking about that and just not answering the question.
Sure. Yeah, pistol makes sense, I think, on a lot of levels for what Canada wants to do and for what Ben is most comfortable with, kind of the best compromise there. So I expect we'll see it a lot. And Juju made a comment about all the motion that Canada's already kind of putting in some of these meetings. And so I think we're going to see a lot of, pre-snap motion, start to finish in 2021.
What do you think about basically, in so many words, Kevin Colbert says, look, we're out here in the dumpsters, people. We're going to continue our dumpster diving, so just hold on tight.
Yeah, it's a comment he says almost after almost every single draft. We're never done exploring free agents. We're looking at, our options. Obviously, financially, we're tight, so we can't maybe make a lot of moves, but they're going to explore options, and I'm sure, maybe they bring in one or two more guys.
We really are always looking at what's available left over on the street. Out on the street for a living. All right. Anyway, look, this team needs to add an outside linebacker, and I think, kind of address that. I think you wrote that up as well, right?
Yeah, he talked about how we, said, quote, we still don't have a lot of proven depth there. They brought back Cassius Marsh and they drafted Quincy Roche in the 6th round, but still not a lot of proven bodies there. But the question is, what free agent options are out there that they could realistically afford? Unless you want to bring back Anthony Chickillo, in terms of the under 30 crowd, there are not a ton of options out there.
There are not a lot of options out there. You're going to have to, I think you really got to sit there, in so many words, he said this too, look, there's probably going to be some other cuts coming around the league, and now that the draft's over, going to monitor those real close. So we'll see if maybe an edge comes available that they can use. It would have to be under 30. It'd have to be one that can help you out on special teams some. But. Apologies to Cassius Marsh. I think he's can help you on special teams, but he's not the answer. And it's going to take Quincy Roche a little bit of time to get up on speed. I think as well too. They've got to try to, I think, find somebody that fits somewhere in between all that.
Yeah, but the list of names is very small right now. I was thinking about could you do the classic Kevin Colbert August trade? And I suppose that's possible if somebody was really cheap. But there isn't a lot of capital to trade right now. They've already given away a 4th-round pick. They gave away that 5th-round pick for Avery Williamson this past year. They got a 7th in return, but that's still just a 7th-round pick. And while they are expected to get, comp picks, you can't trade those until you get them. I mean, you can't give the IOU to a team for a future comp pick that does not exist in August. And so there's going to be some hurdles there if you want to try to trade a future pick for a guy this August.
Yeah, it is going to be tough. We're just going to have to sit and wait and see if someone else around the league gets cut. True or false? A player, an edge not currently under contract with the Steelers right now will be on the Steelers' initial 53-man roster
for week 1.
Right.
I'm going to just say false because I don't know who that guy would be. I mean, maybe it's somebody who gets cut in a couple weeks or a cut downs or a trade or something like that. But in terms of current free agents, I don't know who you go after. I had a list of names, in March, lower level guys, Ryan Anderson, Derek Rivers, guys like that, but they're all signed now.
I'm going to say true. I'm just going to have faith that and I don't know who. I don't have one unearthly idea who it will be, but I don't see how you can go into the season. And look, he had a lot of nice things to say about Alex Highsmith, and all true. But he also did say, look, this is a guy that having to catch the moving train, right? And did a good job of that. But there is still going to be a part of Alex Highsmith that has to go through part of this growing stage of just getting more snaps underneath his belt, right?
Sure, he's got to grow and improve and develop and try to be as close to Bud Dupree as he can. He is not there yet. No way.
You're probably with me. Quincy Roche, great. I mean, to get him where they got him, for the need that they had, you probably couldn't have made a better pick than him when they got him. I mean, and really has some nice upside there. So kudos on that. But to expect him to come in right out of the chute's tough.
Yeah, Highsmith was rotating with Adaney for the first half of the season, playing 10 snaps a game, and Adaney was playing about 10. So that was a third-round pick, too. Someone that I think was more advanced and more developed than Roche is right now, although they're kind of close. But, so Roche's not going to come in from week one and play 20, 25 snaps as that true number 3 at both spots, outside linebacker.
And if you're asking Cassius Marsh to handle more than just a handful here and there, you're doing it wrong, I think. So I'm going to say true that at some point here they add an edge here. I think they need to add a safety still too, Alex, and one came open. I don't know if he's going to be in the price range though, but Bobby McCain got cut by the Dolphins, and you want to talk about being able to kind of draw some quick points to him as him being just the kind of guy that Kevin Colbert looks for. There's a lot of reasons to think or to expect the Steelers at least to call on Bobby McCain.
Yeah, I know that was your terrible take yesterday. And just a quick last point on the edge. I think they can add somebody. I just don't think it'll be a current free agent. I think it could be a cutdown guy, September or right around final cutdowns or something like that, a trade possibly. But just in terms of the current free agents, I just don't see the name who fits. But to the safety position, yeah, Bobby McCain cut by the Dolphins makes a lot of sense, but he's already got a trip lined up to Washington. So we'll see if he gets out of Washington or if he signs with them.
Man, this is a guy that can play both safety spots. He can play down in the box. He can, he hasn't done a lot of it, but he's played some slot, as well. And let's not forget, this is a guy that was in Miami when Minka came to the league, and those two sure seem to have a lot of mutual respect for each other. And I think Bobby McCain was kind of the team captain or defensive captain over there for a little bit as well. Memphis product, they know a lot about those Memphis kids and all like that as well too. So there is a lot of easy lines that you could draw back to Bobby McCain. Now, look, are you going to get him on a veteran benefit deal 1 year? Probably not, right? Because he was due to make, I think, almost $7 million. I think in 2021 with the Dolphins before being cut. So you'd probably have to give him close to that $7 million as part of a two-year deal or something along those lines. And obviously, you're going to use up a little bit of that $1.5 million salary cap space that the Steelers have available in doing so. But of the people out there, I know Heath is another one that potentially the Steelers could look at. I would rank McCain over Heath, though. But they need to get them
cost more though than Heath.
Right,
too.
Right. But they need to get something. They need to get another safety, I think, in the door.
Well, that's the problem because you're talking about they could still stand to add another safety, a slot guy, an edge, a tight end. I mean, there's still some depth things to try to figure out with this team, and they're not going to. They can't sign 4 or 5 guys. I really don't see that happening, at least of any sort of quality. So they're going to have to really pick and choose maybe 1 or at most 2 free agents to bring in.
Exactly.
So that's and Jesse James, as you mentioned, I think in your post yesterday, James is still out there. Will he be on the radar? I'm all for bringing him in as a an extra tight end as Freiermuth develops, and those rookie tight ends have that tough jump. So I'm still all for that as well.
Me as well, and Jesse James makes too much sense still.
Yeah, and he's not. He was briefly connected to the Bills, but that was it. And have not heard anything on James' market in several weeks now.
Right, and you would think it's going to start heating up here pretty soon. His market, or what whatever's left of it, Or,
yeah.
What is he? What is it? What is his worth right now?
It's about the minimum, maybe a little bit more than that. But I mean, the guy has 20 catches over the last 2 seasons. It's May 7th. I mean, that value is not going to be super high right now.
And if he did sign with the team, I mean, which I mean, if he signed with the Steelers, he's almost guaranteed a roster spot. Whereas I don't think that's not necessarily the case with some other teams that he might sign with at this point.
I don't know what the other options there even are. What other teams are tight end needy right now? But in Pittsburgh, you would feel like, I mean, how would he not make the roster? He'd be one of your top 3 tight ends, slam dunk. So he gets to come home, which is another benefit as well. So right. I think it makes sense for him to come back.
I think he make. I'm holding out hope.
Yep, I am as well. All right, Dave. Kevin Colbert also briefly touched on the Justin Lane. We should mention the Justin Lane situation as well. He agreed to a plea deal, had the felony charges dropped against him, and agreed to plead guilty to a misdemeanor charge. No jail time. I think it's community service, a fine, yada yada. I do not expect a league suspension from that. Kevin Colbert said it's a league discipline issue. Obviously he was disappointed in that, but I think it's all going to get moved on here pretty quickly.
Yeah, he kind of fired a shot at him too, right? Hope he learns from it. Hope he's ready to get to work, basically. Because I think we both agree that even as thin as this cornerback group is right now, I'm not so sure I would write Justin Lane's name down in a pin right now as being a lock to be on the 53-man roster. Obviously, it's easier to put him in your 53 than it isn't. But once again, I'm not so sure he's a lock.
No, I would not consider him a lock right now. But speaking of which, Dave, if something else from Colbert you wanted to mention, we can talk about your first 53-man roster prediction for the 2021 season.
Yeah, let's. Where do you want to start on my 53-man roster?
Well, we'll go down right through the list. Just starting with quarterbacks. So the 3 you are carrying on your 53 are Ben, Rudolph, and Haskins, beating out Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, and it's more just thinking that they really hoping that Haskins wins the job. I'm not totally convinced that he will, but obviously I think there's a good shot at it there. But I went with Haskins over Dobbs, at least initially here.
And Dobbs could still theoretically land on the practice squad as well, which I think would make sense to keep pushing Haskins and just give yourself as much quality competition in that room as possible.
Absolutely.
At running back, you're carrying 4 with Najee Harris, Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland, and Kalen Ballage, beating out Jalen Samuels.
Yeah, I just I don't know about you. You could make an argument that Jalen Samuels will still fight through the trash, I guess, and end up making there. And look, Kalen Ballage at this time, not a huge amount of upside, but I think you did a good job pointing out the short yardage aspect with him, and he does have some special teams ability to him too. So if they do keep 4 plus a fullback, then I could see Kalen Ballage beating out Jalen Samuels.
Yeah, I think he's a better special teamer than Samuels is, and so I would agree with you there. And with fullback Derek Watt making the roster, that's been set in stone, assuming good health.
Right.
At receiver, just 5 of them with Juju, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, James Washington, and Ray McLeod.
Boy, was there any, we haven't really talked too much about the wide receiver group. Obviously the Steelers did not draft a wide receiver first this year, first time. They have not drafted a wide receiver, I believe, since 2011. So that's kind of monumental there. And not many times since Kevin Colbert has taken over have they not drafted a wide receiver. But was there any more of a bigger winner in the 2021 NFL draft than one Ray McLeod?
Yeah, it's certainly good news for him that they didn't draft a receiver, and with him being presumably the starting kick and punt returner, it feels like his odds of making the roster are pretty strong.
So, it goes without saying, Juju, Deontay, Chase Claypool, James Washington are all gimme putts. I kind of feel, a year ago, we didn't even know Ray McLeod really existed, right? He wasn't even
he wasn't on the roster.
Wasn't on the roster, and here we are now. He seems about as close to a lock maybe as possible right now, and it just doesn't seem. Who's going to challenge him? I guess would be the better question.
Especially since McLeod can be your kick and punt returner,
right,
which is a lot of value for the team. So pretty easy there. With tight end, I didn't even realize that you had Jesse James on here. Eric Ebron, Pat Freiermuth, and there you are. You're calling your shot with Jesse James.
Calling my shot with Jesse James. They'll obviously keep 3 tight ends, I think, in total. How do they feel about Zach Gentry, Kevin Rader, or anybody else on the roster at this point? if they get a shot to get Jesse at the minimum, once again, we'll see. But maybe this is more about me feeling better than caring what the rest of you think there. But I'm calling and normally I stay away from this. You know me, normally in my first 53-man rosters, I stay with what's on the roster. I think generally I went outside normal this time around because I think when you look at this, when you start going through the names and start putting together a 53-man roster, you start seeing the holes, when you start putting it to paper there. And I think they really, I understand they drafted Pat Freiermuth. I understand they're going to use him quite a bit, yada, yada. But they really could use a good third tight end here, and Jesse James makes too much sense. If I made you stick with just who's currently on the roster, so not including James, who would be your third? It would be Kevin Rader, obviously. Okay. I don't think Zach Gentry is going to develop anymore. I mean, he missed out on a lot of valuable playing time last year to be able to develop himself there. He just, I just think it's too much to ask to continue that conversion out. So I would think you would go more with kind of the guy with what can give you some special team stuff, can give you some blocking and all like that, and that's Kevin Rader. So my default to Jesse James would be Kevin Rader. Gotcha. I'm with you. I think Rader's the better blocker, better special teams player, and that's what you're looking for in a number 3 tight end. With the offense line, you are keeping 8. David DeCastro, Chukwuma Okorafor, Zach Banner, Kevin Dotson, Joe Haig, BJ Finney, Kendrick Green, and Dan Moore Jr. Yeah, look, I mean, you could, if you I kept one less or one fewer, 24 on offense versus 26 on defense. If you were to push come to shove that you force me to keep 9 offensive linemen, tough to come up with that 9. Maybe Coward. Hassenauer. Hassenauer or something along those lines there, but. Could you get those guys to the practice squad and you're only going to dress 7 on game day anyway, more than likely. So I went with what looks to be the chalk 8 right now. Boy, when you look at this 8 and you look at the a lot of changes, right? I mean, this looks like a whole different room altogether here. Obviously, they signed Joe Haig, so he's probably going to be part of it. B.J. Finney, your draft picks, Okorafor, Zach Banner. I mean, really, like I said, this is the chalk 8 at this point, barring injury. These 8, I think, are going to be on the list here. Now, it just comes into question: is there going to be a 9th? Yeah, what's the rule for the 9th? Isn't it if you have 9 offensive linemen, you can have an extra guy dressed or something? I'm forgetting the rule on that they brought in last year. Is that a rule? I'm going to have to go back and look at that. With the extra offensive lineman that you can dress them or something. I'm forgetting the exact rule that was put in play this past season. And how many did they carry last year, too? I know I'm asking a lot of questions here, but I wonder if they will go with a 9th offensive lineman. Yeah, I'm going to have to look back real quick, and do we even know for sure right now if those are the same rules they're going to carry over? That's true. I think they're going to carry that one over. I don't know that was COVID related, but anyway, a fair group of 8 there, right there for the offensive line. Switching over to the defense. With the defensive line, you're carrying 6 with Cam Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, Tyson Alualu, Chris Wormley, Carlos Davis, and Isaiah Loudermilk. Isaiah Buggs not making an appearance on this list. And not does that surprise you? No, if you're going to leave somebody off, I think Buggs is the first name that you look towards. Let me read off the offensive linemen they kept last year. Villanueva, Filer, Pouncey, Stephon Wisniewski, Zach Banner. Those were your opening 5. They also on the 53-man roster. Let's see, not active. David DeCastro was down with an injury for week 1. They also had Hassenauer, Dotson, Okorafor. So there's 9. So 9. So, if that rule obviously carries over whatnot, then I'm going to have to come up with a 9th. Right, and it could be Hassenauer or Coward would be your 2 to choose from. Right. All right, so the D-line there. So why basically Loudermilk over Buggs? That seems like or Davis. I don't know what your final decision there was, but why those 2? Yeah, look, and you got a draft pick still in Davis here. I thought really he outplayed Buggs. I think there's a lot more upside still with Davis over Buggs. So that's one decision there. And I mean, Loudermilk, you got a future draft pick. You traded up to get him and all. I mean, is it going to be super tough maybe to get a guy like Loudermilk to the practice squad? I don't know, but I mean, I would think, man, you expose a guy like that. You went through the hell and high water to kind of get him. You would think that you at least kind of keep him on the 53. So, and we know that they normally only keep 6 on their 53 anyway.
Yeah, I think keeping 6 defensive linemen is the right play there, and I think Davis is going to make it, but I think it comes down to Loudermilk versus Buggs, and I'm leaning Loudermilk right now just because I think Buggs has been so inconsistent. They've been frustrated by some of the weight issues and just some of the inconsistent play that he's shown, but Loudermilk's not a lock. A 5th-round pick is not a lock. I know they did trade up for him, but once you get into camp and you make the best decisions for your team, we've seen those guys get cut before, so I don't think Loudermilk is a lock here.
Yeah, by no way, shape, or form do I think he's a lock. Absolutely.
With the inside linebackers, you are carrying 5, including Miles Killebrew as an inside linebacker in this exercise with Devin Bush, Robert Spillane, Buddy Johnson, Marcus Allen, and again, Miles Killebrew. And Dave, you're killing me here. Vince Williams, cut. Oh, that really pains me.
Yeah, look, I mean, I obviously think there's a chance that Vince makes the roster overall, not in this prediction, obviously. It's going to be interesting to watch that inside linebacker room work its way out. I think personally, Vince Williams might need something to happen. Some sort of unfortunate thing, not favorable to kind of talk about, if you will. So
an injury, I think.
Yeah. Look, I mean, Devin Bush is back. It's hard to imagine Robert Spillane not making his 53, right?
Yeah, I think he's going to make it.
Buddy Johnson obviously is going to make it. So that's 3. What do you want to characterize Killebrew as?
I think they called him a DB. He's played linebacker really in the few defensive snaps that he's had. So I guess you can put him in either camp if you really wanted to.
I mean,
I'll probably classify him as a safety in my
all right. Safety line, whatever. Marcus Allen, safety / linebacker. Too. So, however you want to kind of characterize that. I threw him in the linebacker room there. So, but regardless, I have 5. If you want to call Killebrew a safety, then throw him in the safety room. Obviously Killebrew is going to be more than likely be on this roster, right? Because of special teams value. And Marcus Allen, I know he's kind of sketchy there, but he's got a lot more probably special teams value than Vince Williams does at this point.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. At edge, you're going with 5 with TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cassius Marsh, Quincy Roche, and the nameless gray face that is a free agent to be determined.
Yeah, look, another room, going to be interesting to play out. We just had a discussion about the outside linebackers and how it sure would be nice to see them add one here. In totality, are they going to keep 9 quote unquote real linebackers? Okay, if you want to throw Miles Killebrew into the safety room, that's fine. That would take you down to 4 inside linebackers and 5 outside linebackers. It's probably going to end up being 9 or 10 in totality when it comes to that that group to get a position, outside and inside linebackers.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to frame it. Going to the secondary now with 6 corners. They are Joe Hayden, Cam Sutton, James Pierre, Justin Lane, Shakur Brown, undrafted rookie free agent, and Trevor Williams. I like this list of 6 here, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, or do you? I mean, other than the name, other than the real, do you really like the group though?
Yeah, other than but I like where your head is at with including Brown and Williams. The strength of the group is to be determined.
Right. Trevor Williams, a lot of people probably don't even know who he is. He's got, signed late last season there on the practice squad. A guy that can play outside and inside, probably better outside than he is inside, but he has played inside a little bit before. And really just for a lack of having good choices there, Shakur Brown right now kind of seems like the odds-on favorite, if there is such a thing, when it comes to maybe being some help at inside at slot.
Yeah, we profiled him the other day for Steelers Deep. I did the profile on him, and I think he can become a potential special teams guy. That'll be his path first and foremost, but I think can be a slot option as well.
Right.
At safety, you're keeping 4. Again, you can call Killebrew whatever you want to call him. Minka Fitzpatrick, Terrell Edmonds, Antoine Brooks Jr., and Trey Norwood.
And boy, I just don't know. Trey Norwood's got a lot, really is a Swiss Army knife kind of guy, but wasn't kind of Antoine Brooks kind of considered the same thing, a year ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was a more defined role player at Maryland. The thought was you could do some stuff with him, and they kind of have in Pittsburgh, so they're hoping to get some versatility out of him.
All right, so, I mean, it's hard to imagine Antoine Brooks Jr., at least the current shape of this roster right now, not making the 53, right?
Yeah, as we sit here today, I'd be pretty surprised if he did not make it.
Now, obviously, Norwood, he's probably more free safety type than anything else and can probably help you out in the slot and all like that. But once again, for a rookie, a late draft pick and all, he's got a tall task ahead of him, but he does have a small room ahead of him right now as well too. So that plays into his favor on top of it. Just for the lack of not having anybody else really to kind of throw on that list, I kind of went Norwood by default there, but I would not be surprised if Norwood winds up starting the season on the practice squad.
Same, and a shout out to Owen for his player profile on
really
Trey
good.
Norwood yesterday,
really good.
Talking about the versatility of this. Check that out on Steelers Depot. And finally, Dave, with your 3 specialists, I'll just run through the specialists, and then you can react. At kicker, Chris Boswell. At punter, Presley Harvin III, beating out Jordan Berry. And at long snapper, Cameron Kennedy. So you have, I believe, all 9 draft picks making the 53-man roster.
Yikes, right?
That's that the history is not strong with that prediction, Dave.
Yikes. Yeah, and I noted that down in my notes at the bottom. But, when you roll through this and you look at the bodies and all, and it's hard to go against that. I guess you could say of the draft picks, what draft picks are most likely not or have the greatest chance of not making the 53? I think it would start with, Loudermilk, probably not a lock. I mean, I wouldn't go around betting your house on it. And then a guy like Norwood, and then we'll see what happens with the punter,
those were the 3.
With Presley Harvin III. So odds are great, I think, that maybe only 2 of the 3 make it. And obviously we'll see. But the fact that I have all 9 making it, and I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot there.
But it speaks to the lack of depth that some of these issues we've been talking about. When you have all 9 draft picks make it, which 9 is an unusually high number for this team in general. Usually it's 7 or 8, and so for it to be 9 and then all 9, making a good case for them, because it's not like you're putting Trey Norwood on there because you love Trey Norwood. It's who else are you going to put on there,
right.
And so that again speaks to some of the depth concerns this team currently has.
True or false? My 53 will be exactly right.
I'm going to go on a big limb here, Dave, and say false.
All right. I won't hate you for that. I'm going to go false as well there. But, I mean, I think you can understand where my head's at on a lot of it. I would expect to hit, 47, 48 of these, which probably isn't hard to do. It's always that final 4 or 5 that make it tough. And once again, Al, of the players they currently have under contract right now, we've seen it time and time again after the draft. Usually there's 1 or 2 players that was not on the offseason roster that winds up on the 53.
Like Ray McLeod.
Like Ray McLeod. And who else? Was there anybody else not on there?
This past year or just in previous years?
I mean, this past year.
Trying to think. I mean, I know a couple of years ago Zach Banner was a late camp ad, and obviously made the team that way.
Colquitt?
Yeah, Colquitt, right? Replacing Barry. That's a good one there.
I'm trying to look throughout. When did when was Pierre was an undrafted free agent? Yeah,
and he made it out of camp. I think that might have been the list. I'm trying to think any other names there. But yeah, history says some new face will make their way onto the roster.
All right.
All right, Dave. Did you want to talk about anything more on prospects today, or you want to table that conversation for Tuesday? I watched more. I'm kind of finishing up Loudermilk and Buddy Johnson. Had a video on Buddy Johnson yesterday, but just any other quick prospect thoughts?
No, I guess to kind of keep this one on the shorter side here, we'll talk more about the prospects on Tuesday. That'll give us a little bit more time to dive a little bit more deeper into the tape. I've watched quite a bit. I mean, real quick, Dan Moore. Have you watched any more on Dan Moore?
No, he's going to be the next guy I get to because I'm finishing up Johnson and Loudermilk.
All right, there just hasn't been a lot. I don't know about you. There just hasn't been a lot to stick out with him so far through the tape.
Is that a bad thing or a good thing?
I mean, it's just it's not bad. There's not a lot of. I think overall it's just the evaluation's kind of tough with him. I'll put it to you this way: so far, to me, there's not a lot of reason to think that he's going to challenge for the starting left tackle job. How's that?
Okay, fair enough.
And then we'll go a little bit more into depth on the and the ands and the buts. I guess on Tuesday.
I thought one comment that Colbert has made throughout these post-draft process, so it's been interesting, is the number of times he's referenced pro style of offense to so many of these draft picks, whether that's Najee Harris or Pat Freiermuth or Dan Moore or Isaiah Loudermilk, guys like that. I think they really wanted to focus on guys who had the cleanest evaluations possible by guys that played in 2020, guys that were healthy overall, and guys that played in more pro style offenses. Because I've heard that phrase come up a dozen times with Kevin Colbert talking about these draft picks.
Yeah, and what did you think about his comments about not putting players through workouts?
Through the private workouts?
Right.
Yeah, we knew that they've never heard of them doing it before. You always kind of wondered if it's just something that wasn't reported or something that they just didn't do that one particular year or whatever the case was. But yeah, Kevin Colbert told Mike Floyer that they just don't believe in doing the private pre-draft workouts that a lot of teams do. Now that it's becoming less and less common. Obviously, it's not happened the past 2 years because of the pandemic, but just said they never have done it. And they never will do it.
All right. Are we missing any loose ends here?
I do want to mention, too, in the interview with Florio, Kevin Colbert said that they rarely talk to head coaches in the pre-draft process. He said they did not talk to Nick Saban about Najee Harris, so not that that's groundbreaking information, but I never knew if they would talk to head coaches what their relationship was with those guys in the pre-draft process. And Colbert said they generally don't do it unless there's some super specific question they want to get an answer to.
One other thing, talk about the draft picks on Najee Harris. I obviously, going through the pre-draft process, I watched a lot of his 2020 stuff and a pretty decent amount of 2019 stuff. Game or two of that. I have since had an opportunity to go deeper into his 2019 and his 2018 tape, and really even farther down into his 2020 tape as well too. Boy, that guy likes to hurdle.
It's like Bell, man. It's scary how similar it is to Le'Veon Bell.
I mean, I had heard it, not afraid to go over people and all like that, and obviously it's seen, some of the highlights related to it. This guy really likes to go up and over. It is littered in his tape, instances of him going over people. And I don't think I realized how much he liked to do that. And just the overall level of physicality with him. He will not shy away from contact. I think one of the things that sticks out about him, obviously outside of the fact that not a lot of explosive runs, not going to run away from a lot of people, he will attempt to either go over the top of people or go through them. Some really good instances of him getting yards after contact, say after 7 yards down the field. So when you're looking at that, when that contact comes between, say, that 7 to 10 yard range, he does a good job of finishing off those runs, initiating contact in a lot of instances, and turning those runs into plus 10 yards. You know what I'm saying there. So probably another little interesting thing about him that you kind of hear that it's on the tape there, and you kind of take it for granted. But when you start diving in deeper into this tape, you start seeing, boy, this guy was really good after first contact, and specifically after first contact, say after 7 yards down the field.
Right, and with the hurdling, not that I get too caught up in YouTube highlight reels, but there actually is like a 5-minute compilation of him just hurdling people in one specific YouTube video, and so that is certainly a weapon that he uses quite a bit, and it's a little scary when you see him get up like that. You don't know what the crash landing might be, but I mean, he's really effective at it. I mean, he has just that's just the athleticism that he has, and again, that's a 6'2", 230-pound back who's just clearing linebackers and defensive backs routinely, and you just don't see that too often from guys of his size.
Do you try to take the trailer park out of the kid, or
Does that reference work for a guy from California?
No, probably not. But from where I'm from, you know what I'm saying. I mean, do you
no, I think you let him be not. You drafted him knowing that that's a weapon that he has, and you let him be Najee Harris.
Right. I think it's kind of hard to coach that kind of stuff out of a player, really.
Right. Yeah.
Without having them think too much, So it is dangerous, though. A couple of times you see him do it, you kind of wonder if he's going to get cracked pretty good. But he sure does like doing it.
Mm-hmm, and he's pretty good at it as well. All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, Bryce back in the email box says, now that it's all said and done, I give this draft a B-. Alex, like you said, I like the tight end, but I don't like it at 55. Did you say that or me?
I didn't say I necessarily didn't like it at 55.
All right, I don't. Trading up in our situation from Loudermilk to me was just a mess. In the immortal words of Dave Bryant, I didn't want to see it. I get why they did it.
I'm still struggling a little bit.
I mean, I get why they did it. When you look at the player, you still kind of wonder,
Yeah, because you got a 4th and a 5th now invested in that guy for a rotational backup at best.
And that's why, right? And that's why I say, man, are you going to throw him out with the trash and hope he makes it to the practice squad? Obviously he needs to earn his 53-man spot and all like that. And there's nothing leading me to believe that he's the next Cam Hayward yet. I'll keep looking, but
well, closest thing to Hayward is the 97 they both wore.
Right.
That's it.
He says, overall, this draft speaks to me in the following ways. The team is much more comfortable with the tackle situation than we are, even though I like more as a prospect. I think we all agreed that the likelihood of them taking a tackle in the first round was kind of out there, right? And even the first 2 rounds, really.
At the very start of the pre-draft process, I thought that they were going to go tackle early, but the more kind of things I read and the more I thought about it, I thought they were going to kind of wait on that center was going to be the higher priority. So I know in both of our mock drafts, we had them taking a tackle in the 4th round, and that's what they did, a different name. We both went with Tommy Doyle. They took Dan Moore, but I think the evaluation of the tackle position, I think we got pretty accurate.
Yeah, look, I think they're happy right now. Or probably not, thrilled, but I mean, at least comfortable with Corfor and Banner and essentially Haig and now Moore as part of it. Moore's going to take some time, I have a feeling.
Yeah, I think at least a year with Dan Moore.
He goes number 2. He says the team may be realizing they don't draft corners well, Sutton and Gay withstanding, and will go shopping after June 1st at that position. I'm not necessarily what June 1st has to do with it. The date they should be shopping right now. If they can you see another corner necessarily being added at this point? I think it's more likely you see a safety added than you see a corner added.
Yeah, it could be either, I suppose. Maybe somebody who's got some versatility, some slot, safety hybrid kind of guy. Maybe just more depth in the secondary in general could happen. But again, I don't know what name that would be right now.
Yeah, he says Roche is a nice addition, but the team will also go shopping at outside linebacker after June 1st for more depth. Once again, I don't know what the June 1st
talking about cuts or something.
I guess, but I mean, teams really people would have already done probably post June 1st cuts by now anyway if they were going to designate such a thing. So unless we're just talking about camp cuts or something like that. I mean, I don't know what throwing the June 1st date in there has to do with it there. Look, I mean, I've talked forever, outside linebacker and tight end, and now really kind of safety's becoming my hot button as well too. They'll add to this roster. I just don't know who the name's going to be or what position it is, but I don't think they're done. He says, in the end, I expect to see a lot more zone running and stretch plays out of Matt Canada to let Najee put his talents to good use. I think people are reading stuff on Twitter a little bit too much. This is already a zone running team anyway. I mean, unless you think you're going to see heavy outside zone, unless you think you're going to see a heavy increase in that, really a lot of the zone stuff they already run, I think you're going to continue to see more of.
Well, I think that's the point. You're going to see even more inside zone, and you might see maybe not a heavy use of outside zone. I kind of doubt that, but just some outside zone. And so I think it is fair to say they could be transitioning to a heavier use of a zone blocking scheme.
I mean, they already use quite a bit. I mean, like I said, I think I have like 150 zone runs of some sort.
Yeah, they run inside zone a decent amount, sure. I mean, but maybe more of that, less power, less gap, and a little bit at least of outside zone. I mean, that's what some of the signals at least appear to be.
They don't run nearly enough power for my liking.
That'll be every single play. For
right. Let's see if we can find maybe college teammates. Rogers. Austin out of Denver, Colorado writes, first want to give you both the entire Depot crew huge shout out. Blah, blah, blah. Awesome content. Thank you for that. First, I think you'll find it interesting. The second part might make you want to slap me through the podcast machine. Moving forward, should all Steelers mock drafts include two prospects from the same school? I think this is something Matthew Marksey just wrote about, right? The reason I ask is because they've now done so every year since 2016, 5 straight drafts. I think Matthew wrote about that. Buddy Johnson, Dan Moore, McFarland, and Antoine Brooks Jr., Devin Bush, Zach Gentry, James Washington, and Mason Rudolph, and 17, Cam Sutton and Joshua Dobbs. To me, this can't be a coincidence anymore. I mean, streaks are streaks until they're not streaks anymore, right?
Well, to the question of is it a coincidence, I mean, what would be the theme or the reason that they're taking, we took Cam Sutton, so now let's take Josh Dobbs. I mean, I'm trying to find what the causation between those two would be. I mean, I guess you could argue, well, they just had eyes on Sutton, and so they watched Dobbs when they were at a game or a practice or something, but I don't know if that's necessarily the Steelers' intent in a given draft.
It is a good question, though, and it's definitely a notable streak. And I don't have a good answer for it, and it's one of those things that you wish someone would ask Kevin Colbert. Is it just coincidence that this kind of stuff has happened, or is there some value? It's hard to imagine because the player's the player,
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, is it just we're there? We see one player, we fall in love with another player that we can't live without. I don't know, but it is notable now, Austin, obviously at this point, and Matthew wrote about it, I think, this morning or whatnot. And I mean, do you put together a mock draft next time and say, let's take 2 players out of one school? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to answer it. I mean, it's a great question. I don't have the answer.
Mm-hmm. It is. I don't know either. I mean, I don't think they're sitting there at the draft saying, well, we took Dan Moore from A&M, so now let's take Buddy Johnson. But could it be something in the process where just in the way that they're watching games or attending games or something like that has them lean towards some of these players from a small cluster of schools? I don't know. But yeah, it would be a good question.
Number 2, and this is where you'll want to slap me. With all the Aaron Rodgers news over the last couple of weeks, I have to ask, not that it is all likely, but purely from a financial standpoint, would it be possible for the Steelers to make a trade for Rodgers, or with his salary this year, is it truly an impossibility? Let's say, for the sake of argument, Ben is included in the trade. Oh, wow. For starters, you're going to you trade Ben, the dead money stays. All right. So And plus the dead money in future years stays as well, right?
Mm-hmm. So how much dead money is that this year?
Well, let me
pull
up.
I haven't even looked at it because obviously, I mean, just from a pure financial standpoint.
I'm treating them very, very nice here. You have prorated bonus this year with Roethlisberger of $24.8 million. If you were to cut, let's see.
Yeah, what would that?
If you were to cut him, wow. I mean, I'm trying to, because the rest of it all would come rushing forward as well here. As well, cutting him post June 1st anyway would lead to $24.8 million in dead money.
Wow.
Cutting or trading him pre June 1st would be $35.175 million in dead money.
What's the overall cap savings?
It'd be a negative 9.2.
Okay, so
yeah, I mean,
this is not financially possible.
I mean, I think if you did it after June 1st, you would say $1.075 million, which is base salary this year. So, obviously, you weren't. I mean, there's just there's no way you can do this.
Okay. Yeah. That's what, and that's yet to even factor in what Rodgers is making, which is a ton of money. So yeah,
you got to accommodate that salary or whatever on top of it there. So I knew the answer to the question, but I just want to give him some facts there. I mean, if you were to trade him right now, you're going to have $31.175 million in dead money. Whereas trading Roethlisberger right now.
Okay.
And his cap number is set to be 25.9. So you go negative. You eat even. You're going the wrong way. There. So I mean, and no team's going to take over dead money like that. Heck, they would have a slew on their end as well too. Talking about the Packers. So no, there's no way.
You think Rodgers is a Packer for Week 1, or you think he gets dealt or doesn't play?
Man, you know what? The old saying, where there's smoke, there's some fire here. I'll tell you this: I won't be surprised if he's not. It's so hard because you don't know. What did you think about Adam Schefter and basically? Mm-hmm. He said during the Dan Patrick show.
Yeah. I just love how he was like, just a day of the draft. That was just a coincidence, man. I didn't really intend to, come on, man. You knew what you were doing there with that.
It just goes to show you how much of this stuff that, it's kind of funny how this shows up on game day morning. The Jason Lockenfora, the Ian Rappaport, the Adam Schefter reports. How did this stuff all of a sudden all break on Sunday morning pregame?
Just right before your pregame show.
A lot of this is contrived, manufactured. Just kind of goes back to what we said earlier in the show when talking about Villanueva and all that kind of stuff there.
I mean, I think there's a lot of truth in Schefter's report because obviously, Rodgers has not come out and denied it, or the Packers really haven't necessarily denied a lot of the reporting itself, but the timing of it was not the coincidence that Schefter's trying to paint it as.
Right. I guess if push come to shove and to force to place a bet here, I'd say he's not on the Packers in Week 1. That would be, I guess, my best educated guess right now.
I'm going to go the other way and say that I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but I think he will be a Packer for Week 1.
Obviously, I don't think he likes what's going on there, and I think he really enjoys doing Jeopardy. Can you imagine if this was Ben?
That's a very good point.
I mean, look, and I understand that they're getting enough of the coverage, and it's blowing up and all like that, just because we don't see it as much because we follow Steelers stuff there. But I can only imagine. I mean, this would be, and I guess it is every day. There's something probably new that we're missing here on Rogers. But man, if this was Ben right now, this would be. I mean, I'm not sure Twitter could function right now.
Yeah, I know Rodgers has been hammered pretty hard by Packers fans. I think he got booed. I think he was at a Brewers game or something. I think a Pat McAfee show said that, and he got booed pretty heavily. So I think Packers fans, are having their freak out right now. But yeah, we're not exposed to it, heavily.
And Brett Favre just needs to shut his damn mouth too. He's not helping. I don't think he's helping matters anyway whatsoever. All right. Anything else here before we get out of here? I think we spent enough time here going over Colbert and everything else that's happened the last couple of days.
Yeah, we'll come back on Tuesday. We should do a live stream for Monday. I'm probably going to do a test live stream over the weekend just to make sure the tech issues I had before are all taken care of. But should do live stream Monday and back on the podcast on Tuesday.
All right, sounds great. In the meantime, you can follow me on the Twitter machine at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar for $25 for one calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of Steelers Depot, and that's been really popular as well, too. So, within all that, we hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll get talking more draft specific. Look, we got a lot of time to do this. At some point, probably going to have some of our contributors back on to talk about some of these prospects as well here moving forward. So in the meantime, until Tuesday, and look, maybe we should do a Monday and Wednesday. I don't know. Maybe we'll do a Monday and Wednesday show next week because I don't think we're going to be having a Friday show next week because I think I'm going to be going out of town there. But just pay attention to the Twitter feed and the site, and if we decide to do a Monday show, it'll obviously show up. If we wait until Tuesday, well, it'll be Tuesday, obviously. So that clears up a lot of stuff right there. I know, and I probably just confused the hell out of a lot of you. But in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.